The wind howled as the snow swirled fiercely around the little girl trudging through the icy landscape. Lily, barely 8 years old, clutched her coat tightly around her small frame. Hidden beneath it was her tiny companion, a white kitten named Frost. The cold bit at her cheeks, and her boots sank deep into the freshly fallen snow. But she pushed forward, her determination stronger than the storm. Behind her, the dim lights of the orphanage grew faint, swallowed by the night. The voices of the staff faded too, though she could still hear the harsh echoes in her memory. "Pets aren't allowed, that kitten goes, or you do." Tears streamed down her face, freezing before they could fall. Frost, sensing her distress, poked his little head out, his green eyes wide with trust. "It's just us now," she whispered, her breath visible in the icy air. "I won't let them take you." Her legs ached, and her fingers were numb. But Lily knew she couldn't stop. She had no plan. Only a desperate need to escape. Her feet slipped on a patch of ice, and she tumbled forward, landing face first into the snow. Frost meowed in alarm, scrambling out of her coat, but Lily quickly pulled him back, cradling him close. "I'm okay," she murmured, though her voice trembled. She struggled to her feet, her eyes scanning the white expanse for shelter. Then she saw it, a faint glow in the distance. A house, its windows glowing warmly against the cold, stood like a beacon in the storm. Lily's heart leaped. Maybe someone there would help. Maybe they wouldn't ask questions. The last stretch felt endless. Her legs wobbled and her vision blurred, but she kept her eyes on the light. By the time she reached the door, her strength was gone. She managed a feeble knock before collapsing on the porch, her arms wrapped protectively around Frost. When the door opened, the light spilled over her frozen form. An elderly man with a weathered face and kind eyes knelt down, his voice soft with concern. "Good heavens, Mary, come quick." The warmth of the house hit Lily like a wave as the man scooped her up. She barely registered the comforting scent of wood smoke and cinnamon before everything went black. In the living room, the woman named Mary, her silver hair tied in a loose bun, hurried to prepare blankets near the crackling fireplace. The man gently placed Lily on the rug, careful not to disturb Frost, who stayed nestled against her. Mary covered Lily with thick quilts, her hands trembling slightly. "She's so small," Mary said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And that kitten, look how he clings to her." The man, whose name was Tom, nodded grimly. "We'll wait until she wakes up. Then we'll figure out what's going on." Frost let out a soft purr as the warmth of the fire spread through the room. For now it seemed the storm had relented. The scent of warm bread and melted butter stirred Lily from her deep sleep. She blinked slowly, her eyes adjusting to the soft glow of the room. The crackling fire in the hearth cast flickering shadows across the wooden walls, and the faint hum of a kettle boiling filled the air. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then she felt Frost's tiny paw on her arm and turned to see him curled up beside her, his fur gleaming white against the colorful quilt. "You're awake." Mary's gentle voice brought Lily fully to her senses. The elderly woman stood nearby, holding a steaming mug. Her face was lined with age, but her eyes shone with warmth. "Here, drink this. It'll help you feel better." Lily hesitated, but took the cup with trembling hands. The heat seeped into her fingers, chasing away the lingering cold. She sipped slowly, the taste of rich cocoa filling her mouth. Frost stretched and meowed softly, prompting Mary to smile. "I see your little friend is feeling better too," Mary said, reaching down to stroke Frost's head. "What's his name?" "Frost," Lily whispered. Her voice was hoarse, barely audible. Tom entered the room, carrying a tray of bread and soup. His movements were deliberate, as though he didn't want to startle her. "Thought you might be hungry," he said, setting the tray down in front of her. "You've had quite the adventure, haven't you?" Lily's eyes darted between them, unsure if she could trust their kindness. The warmth of the house felt foreign, almost unreal after the cold cruelty of the orphanage, but the food smelled too good to resist. She took a piece of bread, nibbling cautiously, then a spoonful of soup. The rich flavors brought tears to her eyes. Mary and Tom exchanged a glance but said nothing, giving her time. When Lily finally spoke, her words came in bursts, the weight of her ordeal spilling out. "They wanted to take Frost away," she said, her voice cracking. "I couldn't stay there anymore." "He's all I have." Tom frowned, his brow furrowing. "Who wanted to take him away?" "The orphanage," Lily replied, gripping Frost protectively. "They said pets aren't allowed." Mary sat beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. You don't have to worry about that now. You're safe here for the first time." Lily allowed herself to relax slightly. The fire's warmth, the smell of home-cooked food, and the gentle presence of Mary and Tom began to soothe her. Frost purred contentedly, his small body nestled against hers. "Why don't you rest for a while longer?" Mary suggested. "We can talk more in the morning." Lily nodded. Exhaustion washing over her again as her eyes closed, a single thought crossed her mind. Maybe, just maybe, she had found a place where she and Frost could belong. The morning light filtered through the lace curtains, casting delicate patterns on the wooden floor. Lily stirred from her sleep, feeling an unfamiliar softness beneath her. Frost was already awake, perched on the windowsill, his green eyes fixed on the snowy landscape outside. His tail flicked back and forth as if entranced by the swirling flakes. The smell of bacon sizzling wafted through the air, pulling Lily out of bed. She glanced around, momentarily disoriented, until the events of the previous night came rushing back. She was still in Mary and Tom's house, a house that felt far more like home than anywhere she'd been in a long time. She tiptoed into the kitchen. Clutching Frost in her arms, Mary stood at the stove, humming softly to herself, while Tom sat at the table, a steaming mug of coffee in hand. The room was warm and inviting, the kind of place that seemed to erase worries. "Good morning," Mary said without turning around. Her voice was light, as if she'd been waiting for Lily to appear. "Come sit. Breakfast is almost ready." Tom glanced up and smiled, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Sleep well." Lily nodded shyly, sliding into the seat. Frost leaped onto her lap, curling into a ball as if he belonged there. Mary set a plate in front of her, fluffy scrambled eggs, crispy bacon, and a slice of toast. Lily's stomach growled audibly, making her cheeks flush with embarrassment. "Eat up," Mary said with a chuckle. "There's plenty more if you're still hungry." As Lily began to eat, Tom folded his hands on the table, his expression thoughtful. "Lily," he began gently, "Mary and I were talking. We'd like to know where you came from and how we can help you." Lily froze, her fork hovering mid-air. Her instinct screamed to run, but something about Tom's voice made her pause. He didn't sound like the orphanage staff, with their clipped, impatient tones. He sounded genuinely concerned. "I don't want to go back," she said quickly, her voice trembling. "Please don't make me." Mary moved to sit beside her, her warm hand resting on Lily's arm. "We're not going to make you do anything, sweetheart, but we do need to know what's happened. You're safe here." Lily hesitated, then slowly began to share her story. She spoke of losing her parents, of the cold, unwelcoming halls of the orphanage, and the threats to take Frost away. Her voice faltered when she reached the part about running away, but Tom and Mary listened without interruption. By the time she finished, Mary's eyes glistened with unshed tears. Tom leaned back in his chair, his jaw tight. "No child should go through that," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Especially not one as brave as you." Lily blinked up at him, unsure how to respond. She wasn't used to adults calling her brave. Most just saw her as a burden. "You won't have to face this alone anymore," Mary added softly. "You and Frost are welcome to stay here as long as you need." Lily's lips parted in surprise. "Really, you mean it?" "Of course we do," Tom said firmly. "But first we'll need to figure out how to keep you safe." A flicker of hope ignited in Lily's chest, though she didn't fully understand what that meant. For now, it was enough to know she wasn't alone. She glanced down at Frost, who was fast asleep in her lap. Oblivious to the weight of the moment, Mary reached out and tucked a strand of Lily's hair behind her ear. "Finish your breakfast, sweetheart. You'll need your strength." For the first time in a long while, Lily allowed herself a small smile. Maybe this wasn't just a temporary stop. Maybe this was the beginning of something new. The morning passed quietly, but by afternoon a chill had settled over the house. Mary sat by the fireplace knitting a thick scarf in soft shades of blue. Tom was outside, shoveling snow from the walkway, his figure visible through the frosted window. Lily sat cross-legged on the rug, frost batting at the fringe of her worn sweater. For the first time in weeks, the heaviness in her chest had lifted, if only a little. A sudden knock at the door broke the peace. Frost bolted to his feet, hissing softly, while Lily froze. Mary set her knitting aside and glanced toward the door, her expression turning wary. "Tom," she called, but her voice trembled ever so slightly. Tom appeared moments later, brushing snow from his boots. He opened the door cautiously, revealing a tall woman bundled in a heavy coat. Her stern expression matched the biting wind behind her. "Good afternoon," the woman said, her voice brisk. "I'm looking for a child, a girl about 8 years old." "About 8 years. She ran away from the orphanage last night." Lily's heart stopped. She scrambled to her feet, clutching Frost to her chest. Mary rose as well, her face calm but her hands trembling slightly at her sides. "I haven't seen anyone," Tom said evenly, his large frame blocking the door. "What's this about?" "She's been missing since yesterday," the woman replied. "The storm made it difficult to search, but we found her tracks leading in this direction." Mary stepped forward, her eyes narrowing. "And why is she so desperate to leave your care?" Her voice, though quiet, carried a sharp edge. The woman hesitated, her stern demeanor faltering. "I don't have time to explain. Ma'am, I just need to know if she's here." Lily's breathing quickened as panic rose. She took a step back, her gaze darting toward the kitchen as if planning an escape. Frost squirmed in her arms, sensing her fear. Tom didn't move from the doorway. "If she were here," he said slowly, "I'd make sure she was safe and warm. I'd also want to know why someone entrusted with her care is out chasing her through a blizzard." The woman's mouth opened, but no words came out. Tom's steady gaze didn't waver, and after a tense moment, she sighed and pulled a card from her pocket. "If you see her, call this number," she said, thrusting it toward him. "We just want her back safely." Tom took the card but didn't look at it. "I'll do that." As soon as the door shut, Lily bolted toward Mary, tears streaming down her face. "They'll take me away," she sobbed, clutching at Mary's apron. "I don't want to go back." Mary knelt down, wrapping her arms around Lily and Frost. "Hush now," she murmured, stroking Lily's hair. "You're not going anywhere. Not if we can help it." Tom joined them, his face etched with determination. "She's not safe with them," he said, his voice low but firm. "We need to figure out how to make this official." Lily looked up, her tear-streaked face full of desperation. "What do you mean?" Tom crouched beside her, placing a hand on her small shoulder. "We're going to fight for you, Lily. You belong here, with us." Mary's eyes met his, her lips pressing into a thin line. She nodded, a silent agreement passing between them. "You're family now," she said softly. "And family doesn't give up." Lily buried her face in Mary's shoulder, her sobs quieting. Frost nestled between them, his tiny body a warm reassurance against the cold that still lingered outside. For the first time, Lily dared to believe in something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The following days were a blur of preparations. Tom and Mary had decided to seek legal custody of Lily, but the process was overwhelming. Small-town lawyers were few and far between, and the snowstorm only made communication harder. Despite the hurdles, their resolve never wavered. Lily stayed close to Mary during the day, helping with small chores around the house. In the evenings, she sat with Tom by the fire as he read old books or shared stories of his youth. Frost, ever present, darted between them, his playful antics drawing laughter from the three of them. One evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Mary sat across from Tom, her knitting needles motionless in her lap. "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" she asked softly. Her voice carried a rare note of doubt. Tom looked up from his book, his grey eyes steady. "I don't think it's a matter of right or wrong," he said. "It's about what's best for her, and she belongs here." Mary nodded, her hands tightening around the yarn. "She's already part of this family. Losing her would be like losing a piece of ourselves." Tom reached across the table, his hand covering hers. "We won't let that happen." The next morning, their quiet resolve was interrupted by a knock at the door. This time, it was the town lawyer, a kind woman named Clara who had braved the icy roads to help them. She was younger than Tom and Mary, with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. "Filing for custody won't be easy," Clara said, warming her hands by the fire. "The orphanage will argue that Lily needs to be placed with a traditional family, especially since she's young. They might even try to move her out of state before we can act." Mary stiffened, her knitting falling to the floor. "They can't do that," she said firmly. "She's happy here." "They can try," Clara replied, "but we'll fight them. We'll need to gather statements, show proof that you can provide for her, and, most importantly, demonstrate that this is the best place for her." Tom leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly. "We'll do whatever it takes." Lily, who had been listening quietly from the kitchen doorway, stepped into the room. "What if they win?" she asked. her voice small but steady. Frost padded behind her. His tail brushing against her legs, Mary knelt down, taking Lily's hands in hers. "They won't, sweetheart, we won't let them." Clara crouched to meet Lily's gaze. "You're very brave, Lily," she said. "This might take some time, but I promise we'll do everything we can to keep you here." Lily nodded. Though her grip on Mary's hands tightened, Frost hopped into her arms, purring as if offering his own silent reassurance. For the next week, Clara worked tirelessly with Tom and Mary to prepare their case. They gathered letters from neighbors, photographs of Lily smiling in her new home, and even a hand-drawn picture from Lily herself, a crayon sketch of her. Frost, Tom and Mary standing together under a snowy sky. The court hearing was set for Christmas Eve, and the tension in the house grew with each passing day. Mary tried to keep things normal for Lily, baking cookies and hanging ornaments on the tree, but the worry lingered in her eyes. Tom spent long hours on the phone with Clara, discussing every possible angle of their case. Finally, the day arrived. They drove through the snowy streets to the courthouse, Lily clutching Frost tightly in her arms. The courtroom was smaller than Lily had imagined, but the faces of the orphanage staff were as cold and unyielding as she remembered. The hearing was long and exhausting, with voices rising and falling as arguments were made. Lily sat quietly beside Mary, her hands gripping Frost's leash. When the judge finally spoke, the room fell silent. "This decision is not one I take lightly," the judge began. He glanced at Lily, then at Tom and Mary. "But after reviewing the evidence and considering the child's well-being, I am granting custody to Tom and Mary." The words hung in the air for a moment before they sank in. Mary let out a soft cry of relief, pulling Lily into her arms. Tom's usually stoic face broke into a wide smile as he rested a hand on Lily's shoulder. They left the courthouse as snow began to fall, blanketing the world in a soft, shimmering white. Back at the house, a quiet joy filled the air. Lily ran to the Christmas tree, where a small box with her name sat waiting. Inside was a tiny house for Frost, crafted by Tom's hands and painted with bright colors. The word Frost was written neatly above the door. Lily hugged him tightly, her heart full in a way she hadn't known was possible. As they sat together by the fire that evening, the warmth of their love outshone even the glow of the flames. Outside, the snow continued to fall, soft and silent, as if the world itself had paused to witness their miracle. If you enjoyed this heartfelt story, don't miss out on more like it. Click on the card above to watch other touching tales that will warm your heart and remind you of the power of love and resilience. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Give this video a thumbs up and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Your feedback means the world to us. Let us know what themes or stories you'd like to see next. Would you like more tales about snowy adventures, unexpected friendships, or heartwarming reunions? We can't wait to hear your ideas.